Right, I'm sitting here with Leighton Baker, the leader, or is it?
Yeah, leader.
Leader of the New Conservative Party. And what I mostly wanted to ask you was,
Whether I wanted long black coffee? Absolutely, I do. Thank you very much.
Yeah. What I wanted to ask you, effectively, was tell me something about New Conservatives, what they're about, why they exist. My standard question has always been in the past, why vote for New Conservatives? But I asked Rudy that question, so I thought, well, since you're the leader, you might as well tell me more about the party and why they exist and why they would be of interest to people.
Okay, well, New Conservative Party of just practical Kiwis, really. And so our policies and everything we're doing is just standing on looking for results, so looking for solutions to the issues that we face, because that's what most of us do in our work. About 70% of us are small business owners, and most of that is just problem solving. So, for instance, when we look at democracy and we go, it looks like we're losing it, government just do whatever they like without talking to us, and they just keep bringing law and law and law, we say binding referenda is a solution. So we promote that as a solution. When you look at, say, 1080, we would say, well, actually, why don't we look at trapping and luring and gradually replace 1080 with those, to give those guys contracts over areas and gradually look at replacing it.
I grew up in a time when people made a living from trapping possums.
Yeah, so it still exists. So it's that sort of thing. It's just practical solutions to the issues we face. So, for instance, if you look at our crime stats, too many people in prison, absolutely. Well, you can't just build more prisons and you can't just let people out. You've got to deal with the causation. So why are people going to prison? So our philosophies are look at the causation and just apply practical, common sense solutions to it. And that's what we've done as a party, and that's the people we've attracted to the party.
So on the taking the prisons one, for instance, and crime. So you're saying go back to the root of these problems, which are normally social. Yes, there are some people who will commit crimes. That's it.
Doesn't matter,
But a lot of crime does have its roots in poverty, in anger issues, and stresses and things like that cause people to. A lot of violent crime tends to be stemmed in stresses that have built up that have then just happened to be released on a driving incident or an incident in the pub or whatever it happens to be.
But if you look at if you go even one step further than that, virtually every person in New Zealand that is incarcerated comes from a broken or dysfunctional family.
Yeah.
So then you go further back, why do families break down? It's broken relationships. Why do relationships break down? People actually do not know the basics of good relationships. That's just the thing. So if you go right at the very beginning, we don't know how to have good relationships, so you've got to invest some actual training on what a good relationship looks like, and the flow-on effect of that will not be the elimination of crime, but it'll be the reduction.
Yeah, nowadays that would include training in being a good parent too, because this is something I'd be interested to know. Statistics show that if you've gone into the foster system, you have an incredibly high chance of becoming a criminal.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Of some sort, be it violence through to major crime.
Yeah.
Do you think that the Oranga Tamariki system that we have now, that's been patched and name changed a few times, is broken and needs a proper repair from the ground up?
Well, it certainly does, and that's why I'm excited about some of our people. So one of our people in our party has had 400 of Tamariki's most aggressive offenders through their home.
Okay.
So we've got people in there that have seen it from the inside and worked in it for years. And in any organisation, if you want to make it better, you go and talk to the people on the ground floor.
Yeah.
And they'll tell you what the issues are, because they work in it, they're the frustrations of it. And so that's who we've got in the party. People that are working on the ground floor and saying, these are the issues. You know, personalities come into play rather than looking what is best for the child. Yeah. And there's a whole lot of things there that can be repaired. So I'm excited about it, because we've got the right people, I believe, that can make positive change.
I was quite shocked how bad that system was and how it's been just patched. And I've done photography at a few protests of people protesting about that organisation. And when I heard some of the stories, and I must admit I was dubious and I made allowance for stretching to the truth and things like that.
Yeah.
But even when I made an allowance for that, some of the stories about how that whole system, from the split of a family or through that anything that involves the uplift of a child and the process working up to and including that, how that works, it occurred to me that, you know, that looks like a piece of software that's been patched and patched and patched and patched, and now they need to write it from the ground up.
Yeah, well, I mean, the ultimate would be to eliminate the need for uplifts, wouldn't it? And
that would be ideal.
That would be, and we're never going to get the perfect ideal, but you've got to aim high.
Yeah.
It's like the All Blacks don't go into training and think, oh, well, we'll come third this year, so we'll sort of just train once a week.
No.
You've got to aim high and get the best result you can. So that really does come to changing what we're talking about when it comes to relationship. And you're like being brutally honest, you're like sort of being very fairy. The reality is we spend most of our time in the health syllabus in relationships still talking about sex, but sex is only one part of one relationship.
Yeah.
It's the wrong foundation for a relationship. Our relationships are built on trust and communication and commitment and things like that.
Yeah.
And self-sacrifice.
And relationships come in all forms and descriptions.
Yeah.
There is a relationship happening here
Absolutely,
while we do this.
Sex isn't involved, is it?
No.
Sure.
Well, I hope not.
No, same here. But what is involved? There's a commitment. We both had to come out in the morning.
Yeah.
You know, there's communication. We're talking together. There's coffee. There's essential. And
there's understandings and there's give and take. There's an understanding of what we're doing, and there's give and take over a whole lot of aspects to do with having this run smoothly from start to finish. And any relationship, right the way through to a marriage relationship, has similar things. But I think the training, I was self-taught, but I observed other people doing interviews and worked out what I liked and didn't like about interviews being done and things like this. But I think a lot of marriage relationships, people are observing bad examples of them, and that's being passed down. And it's like the old photocopying a photocopy of a photocopy of a photocopy. It's getting worse and worse and worse.
Absolutely.
And it's not as clear as the original. And we're not as close to our families as physically as we used to be.
No.
Even you go back 40 years, people didn't live as greatly separated from their parents or grandparents.
Yep.
I just look back to the amount of contact I had with my grandparents. And therefore my parents obviously did.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know for certain how much they turned to their parents for guidance in difficult situations, but I know I turned to my grandparents a lot for guidance on certain issues, because there were some things it was easier to talk to the grandparents than the parents for some things.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they have that feeling of older and wiser as well. And I think I've seen a lot of people this day and age who don't have those people to turn to.
Yeah.
Some of them may have their parents, but a lot of them can't go back a generation and go, I'll go and talk to my grandparents about this issue. How do I deal with this issue in the family? It could be from dealing with a problem child through to arguing in the home a lot, and how can we deal with that? And it's getting guidance, and I think this is possibly where we need to look at how else can that gap be filled.
Yeah. It's really important that children actually want their parents to be engaged and interested in them, and we've got so busy that they can't. I'll just tell you this wee story because it's a funny one. But I went to pick up my wee grandson from play centre, and he says, "Pop, can I throw you a twick?" And I said, "Sure." He said, "The double front flip." That got my attention, as it would. And so, okay. So he gets in his little scooter, it's got two wheels on the front, and he slowly goes on the concrete. He looks behind him, and they've got those wee brakes, and he puts his foot on the brake, slowly stops. So I think he was warming the brakes up. It's all good. This is going to be great. He goes around the whole quad, and comes all the way back to me, just doing that.
Yeah.
And he says to me, "I didn't do a front flip," which I already knew because I'd watched him. He hadn't done anything. And I thought, what was that all about? And then I realised what he was saying is, "Pop, I've learned to use the brake on the scooter, and it's not that exciting, but I really, really want you to watch me.
Yes.
So I'm going to upsell you." And so it dawned on me, all he wanted was my attention.
Yeah.
But we've got so busy, and parents have got so busy, and they're running here, there, and everywhere, and society's saying, to people, if you don't work, you're not valuable, and so they think, I've got to go to work, but actually, your kids, they just want some time.
Yeah, and
we're losing that.
Time and praise.
Yep.
When they do something positive, thank them.
Absolutely.
I've got a number of friends with kids, and the really young ones are quite funny. I turn up there after not having been there for a few weeks or something, and someone's got to fill me in on everything they've done for the last 3 weeks or something all at once. And I don't even think a computer can download that information that fast, the speed at which they get the information out. Most of it you don't understand. You just got to pick the right moments to look interested in. Oh, that's really good, and this sort of thing. And then the older ones, when you get them to do something for you, or they bring in your cup of tea. Mum's told them to bring in your cup of tea. As silly as it seems, remembering to thank that child for doing that thing for you, which is thanking them for a positive thing, because that instills that you should do positive things. I think they are such big things. They're often overlooked. Giving a child attention and going, I would rather be watching Netflix right now, but I can give this kid 15, 20 minutes and I'll pay total attention to what you're doing, even though I honestly have zero interest in what you're doing, right? But I know the value of my interest in you has a long-term value into the future.
Absolutely.
And the sort of person you're going to be and how you're going to treat others. Right? So it's like paying it forward. I will give you my time now because I know the benefit to you and the future that I want. And we often forget about that, I think.
We do. And I think, too, we're talking a lot, especially at the moment, about my rights. What are my rights, or what should I have, or what am I, what can I get? What's due to me?
Yeah.
But actually, I've been thinking about it, because we can go around all of New Zealand, a lot of New Zealand lately.
Except Auckland.
I did live there for a while, so I don't mind avoiding it for a wee while. But the interesting thing is, I think about all this rights. Actually, we're here for a very short time, aren't we?
Yeah.
And if you or I drop dead tomorrow, the world's going to spin around, and someone will come and eat a free sausage roll, say, heck of a nice guy, and the world keeps going. And so it doesn't actually revolve around us.
No.
But we have a window of opportunity during our lives to actually positively affect other people.
Yes.
And I think if we can change that mindset, so it's not about me, what I can get or what I deserve or anything, but actually, what can I do?
Yeah.
How can I help? Actually, it's good for your mental health, physical health. You enjoy life more, you're looking for opportunities, you've got a reason to live. It's actually really positive, and I think probably we've gone so far the other way, we're destroying people because they want to be given all this stuff, but the world doesn't actually revolve around them. There's too many other things going on, and so they're falsely told that it does, and when they work out that it doesn't, they're gutted.
Yeah, I've noticed this with this whole COVID lockdown. There are groups of people who make a big hoo-ha about their rights, and they haven't been consulted on this, blah, blah, blah. And they're thinking about them, not how just fitting in and dealing with this lockdown or isolation or whatever benefits the whole of the rest of the community in the long run. They're more concerned about, you shouldn't be allowed to lock me down, blah, 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 instead of going, yes, I will do this now because it benefits the rest of the community overall. And that covers a lot of areas. Just how you drive your car.
Exactly.
Think of the other person. It's the tenth of a second you gain by not letting someone pass you or whatever isn't a big deal. If you thought about...
And we all make that mistake, don't we? We all do something and we think, I shouldn't have done that. Halfway through an overtake, I probably should have just waited. We've all done those things.
Yeah.
And I guess that's part of life experience and learning, and then actually I don't have to push it. It's no big deal, because I overtook that guy. It wasn't a great overtake. And 2 minutes later I stopped at a lollipop man and he's right behind me.
Yeah.
What did I gain?
And as my father always said, if you stop and evaluate your day or your week and look at, did you do things how you wanted to do them, to be a good person or a decent person, and you find things like, I was a bit of an arse on the road the other day, and he said, when you recognise that and then go, I will attempt to do better next time, he said, you're making progress. When you don't evaluate your life to spot those moments where you could have done better, you're not having a positive impact because you're not progressing. You're just doing the same thing every day. Whereas when you stop and go, I could have done that better, and then you make a better effort next time.
Yeah, someone said to me, mistake's only a mistake if you don't take ownership on it, which is exactly the same thing, isn't it? If you make a mistake and you take ownership and you learn from it, it's not necessarily a total mistake. There's an error, but you've learned from it, so there's some good out of it. Yeah,
and I think this comes directly into politics. When politicians go, yes, we got that wrong, we'll do better next time, then you can have confidence in the politicians. Right? when politicians keep going, no, we're going to keep doing this. Doesn't matter if it doesn't work or you don't like it. We're going to keep doing it. You said about referendums, binding referendums. I know a lot of people who think that would be a good idea because we have these referendums that are quite meaningless because of the fact that the only time anything's done is if the outcome of the referendum suits what the government wants to start with. Exactly. And they're using a referendum to justify what they were going to do, planning on doing anyway.
Yeah.
Whereas if we had binding referendums and made sure we thought about these referendums before we put them in action. Yeah. So if you're going to have a referendum on the cannabis legislation, then have the referendum because you are prepared to deal with whatever outcome comes from that. So if 90% of the population say, yes, we want to legalise it, then you're prepared to do that. Yeah. If 90% say, no, we don't want it legalised, then you're prepared to do that.
Yeah, so our thing around it is those things, any of those things, they should be go through a citizens-initiated referenda. So, for instance, the cannabis one, if people really want it legalised, they should have to go through the process of a citizens-initiated referenda. So going out, getting enough signatures to actually prove there's enough interest in it to invest the money in doing it.
Yeah.
And then make the result have to be like 67% support because you're changing the culture of the nation.
Yes.
So it can't be a 49-51. It's got to be really emphatic that this is what the people, we're changing the way our nation goes, it's a big change. Actually, it needs to be really well supported because if it's not, we need to stay where we are until the majority of people think actually it's time for a decent change.
I think it needs to be on a similar par to if you've got a jury of 12 people and you go, well, we don't need the whole jury to agree, but we want the majority. What is that majority? And in situations like that, it's not just 7 jurors, it's like 10 jurors or something. And
because you're making a big change. If it's a choice between, like at the moment, all our streets are black, but we've only got 2 choices in the future. One is yellow and one is blue. Which one do you want? Well, then 49, 51, it doesn't matter. Yeah. But when you're changing, this is the way we're going now. We're going to make a direct change, whether it's euthanasia, cannabis, whatever it is. We're making a big change. Actually, that's got to have the support of the population to make that change. Because no government's ever honoured a citizens-initiated referendum, even if it's had 90% support. They've never honoured it. But then if John Key wanted one on the flag, it happened like that. So we invested $60 million. He didn't have to go through the process of getting support for a flag referenda. So he put no skin in the game. He just made us pay for it.
Which is a waste of how many of $1 million?
Yeah, 26 mil or something. Yeah. So to me, that's not great governance. It's just you having a wee flit on someone else's money.
Yeah.
Also, if they'd have gone through the due process everyone else has to go to, then it would have been a legitimate referendum in some way.
And things like the changes to the abortion law that happened just recently.
Yeah.
My thing is, I'm prepared to go with what the majority of the population will go with, if that's the way things are going. Okay, I may not be happy with the result, but if the majority of the population want that, then that shows a change in our culture and so forth. So if, again, it was like a 60-70% in support, then you go, okay.
That's democracy, isn't it?
Yeah, that's democracy. And my old man has always said that if 100% of the people take part in the election, or voting on a referendum or whatever, then no matter what the outcome is, you know that that's representative of the population, the whole of the population. So if 70% are in favour of something or of a politician or whatever, then you know that that represents the population.
Yeah.
Now that may change next time round. Someone might want to make a change to that law in the other direction in the future because they've decided, well, for 3 years this hasn't quite worked, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And this is where the binding nature of referendums, because otherwise referendums are really just a waste of time.
Well, that's why people don't bother to get involved anymore. And I believe that's actually one reason why we see a drop of the people getting involved in the democratic process. Because people, and I've heard this so often now, it doesn't matter who you vote for, you get the same result, so why bother?
Yeah.
And we're seeing that at the moment, like the abortion one, pushed through while people were in lockdown. What was the urgency on it? Do you know what I mean? They pushed through this law, they didn't listen to 95%.
Especially when it wasn't related. I could understand if it was a law that related to COVID or pandemics.
Yeah.
But that it wasn't. It had nothing to do with that at all.
And they didn't listen to 95% of submissions, which, if it was absolutely urgent, I could understand, but it wasn't. So what? And to me, they've gone and changed the culture in New Zealand based on the basically majority of 120 odd politicians, and how is that fair for the population? And then did they go through and explain what it actually means to everyone? No one really had an idea. So to me, that's actually not democracy. It's not.
Yeah.
It's someone pushing the ideology and you taking advantage of the situation to push the ideology, which again, that's not the role of government. Government's role is to actually work for us. We pay them.
Yeah.
They represent us. It's a very simple transaction.
Also, that's the nature of MMP as well. And you probably realise as a second level party, is the fact that a lot of people don't fully understand MMP for starters.
Yeah.
I'm sure the two main parties, Labour and National, haven't fully grasped the concept of MMP because they always go for the two ticks. They don't realise that for us as citizens, right, the idea of MMP is that you have one, at the moment it's going to be National. Labour is going to be one of the parties, right?
Yeah.
But that will over time probably change. But then you need a second party in there to ensure they stay on the straight and narrow and they don't get full run. It's like having your dog on a lead sort of thing.
See, they do not want that. And then if you look at the whole system set up in New Zealand, it is purely focused still on the two main parties. And I'll give you an example. We'll have a leaders' debate. There'll be two. There'll be one just for National Labour, and there'll be other for the minor parties. So they're automatically saying to people, these are the small parties, we're the real people. So we're the main ones, so they're doing it. The funding. Electoral Commission give about $5 million out to political parties to advertise on TV and radio. National Labour will get about 1.3 million each, and it totals down to, I think 20 or 30,000 for the very bottom ones. So if it is a true democratic system, then all parties registered by Writ Day should get an equal amount of money to advertise on TV and radio.
Yeah.
Because that's equal and democratic, but it's not. It's all swung in favour of the major two parties. And so they're trying to maintain that two-party system.
In essence, the size of the party shouldn't matter. If it's a fully registered party, the size of the party shouldn't.
Because that's the ideas, isn't it?
Yeah.
So ideas come across the spectrum. We talk about right and left, but across the spectrum, people should be able to hear all the ideas to make a valid decision. But if the government are artificially restricting them just to these two parties, which are getting more and more similar all the time, in reality, if you look at the decisions, there's not much between them anymore.
No.
And so you're restricting it to those ideas. You're not allowed to hear the other ideas because they're artificially restricting. That restricts our democracy. And that's where MMP actually fails. In some way, it's failing because they're saying, give us both ticks, because they don't want MMP. They don't want smaller parties. They don't want other ideas. They want to control it.
Yeah.
And we see that's what happened with this government. They bang, bang, bang with legislation without due process.
And I'm pretty sure if most people are honest with themselves, they will say, oh yes, I can probably pull a policy out of Labour that's a good idea, a policy out of New Conservatives that's a good idea, a policy out of New Zealand First that's a good idea, a policy out of Greens that's a good idea, so on like that. They can probably pull a policy out of almost every party that they will think is a good idea, right? So why should you give both ticks to one party?
Absolutely. And then if we have more parties in Parliament, then actually those parties have to work together. So they have to say, I love that idea of yours. How can we get that through? Even though you're on the other side of the floor, that's actually a good idea.
We'll find somewhere between what you completely want and what I completely want. We'll find something in the middle.
Yeah, or grabbing that idea from them and that idea from them, and it's not all about me. And I'm not going to condemn your idea because it's the wrong colour.
Yeah,
it's good if it's good for New Zealand. It's good for us.
Yeah, and that comes back to that relationship thing you're talking about. Yeah. Because effectively, a group of politicians, a group of MPs representing New Zealand in Parliament, need to function in a good relationship, and they need to have that given take, and understanding of your idea is good, regardless of what party you are. If you've got a good idea, it's a good idea.
Yeah, it's good for New Zealand. Yeah. So it's not, when you're looking at a policy, it's not, is it good for our party? It's, is this good for New Zealand? Yeah. And what's the long-term consequence of that particular policy? Is it got long-term positive effect? Let's go for it, and then discuss it on those grounds rather than, this is what I personally believe, I'm going to push it through no matter what, because it's what I want and what I believe. And that's not a good enough reason to actually govern the country. And
if you honestly, as a politician, believe that some other party's idea is a good for the country, then go, I will get behind that, and I will be behind it, and I will vote for it, I'll support it, whatever, because it's good for the country. Not because it's good for my party, and I won't vote against it because it's not put forward by my party. it's good for the country. Full stop. That's it.
Yeah, believe anything that we come to use conscience votes for now, that should go to the people, because a change in the culture of society, which is different to the governance. So I believe the government's role really is to protect and enable and encourage people to succeed. That's its role. But when you change the culture of a country, that should go to the people, because it's the people who are most affected by it.
Yeah.
So
and that's where most of those conscience votes are. Most of those conscience votes are on issues that are affecting culture.
Yes, that's what they're for. But then you're allowing 62 or 63 MPs, and unfortunately what we're seeing is sometimes there's an order coming down from the top is, for this particular conscience vote, you have to vote in line with the party lines. Well, that's not a conscience vote. But secondly, the MPs aren't voted in to vote with their conscience. They're voted in to represent the people. So they have to go back to their electorate and say, this is coming up. What do you guys actually want? Because they're a servant of the people. They're not there to rule over them. So it's not, well, I'm the candidate for Waimakariri now, so whatever I want goes for the Waimakariri. I'm one person.
Yeah.
There's 70,000 people there. What do they want? What's important to them? Because I'm meant to be serving them.
What does your electorate want?
Yeah.
And if the way they want you to vote is different than what you personally want to vote, then you have to bite the bullet and go the way they want.
Well, you're taking their pay. I'm a builder, so if I go and work for you, I've got to do what you want. I can't just turn up and do what I feel like, because, it's a sunny day, I'll build a deck and you want your bathroom done. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
So
or you're given a design, you go, I would like it the other way, and I turn up, hang on, my house wasn't supposed to look like that.
Yeah, and I want it on top of the hill, not down in the gully. You know? But it's that simple process. I exchange my time and my labour and my expertise for your money, and in return I have to do what you ask.
Yeah.
A politician simply swaps their time for your money, but in return they must do what you ask. Well, we've got politicians now that aren't even asking the people. They're just saying, well, this is what I want, or this is what I'm being told to vote for, I'm going to vote that way. But actually you're paid by the people.
Must be the only job in this country that they get to do what they like, regardless of what the people paying them want them to do.
Yeah. In fact, they're telling the people that pay them that what I'm saying is going to go no matter what, and I don't care what you say. That's the hard part to bite. They're saying, I want you to pay me, but I'm not going to do what you ask.
Yeah.
And you go,
So to the people watching this, because we'll wind it up in a couple of seconds, is, do you think a good thing to say to them? Oh, Rude just bumped the camera. We'll wait for it to settle. Yep. Yeah. Do you think a good thing to say to them would be, seriously think about who you're voting for, and that's for both ticks. Don't just vote for one party because you traditionally have, but think about who you're voting for, look at the policies, make a good and honest decision that you can be 100% happy with in the end.
Absolutely. We've been saying to people, don't vote someone out, because when you vote someone out, you leave an empty seat. Who's going to fill it?
Yeah.
You don't know. So actually vote someone and look for the people or the party with the policies you like and vote them in. And the only wasted vote is when you don't vote for what you truly believe, because if you don't vote for what you truly believe, even if you get what you voted for, you haven't got what you wanted. So that's the wasted vote. So, we're encouraging people, just get out and vote what you believe. Stick with the party you like, with the policies you agree with, and then at the end of the day, you can be satisfied you've done the right thing.
Yeah, you've done your bit.
Yep.
Yes, it's two ticks, one person's vote, but that mounts up over time.
Absolutely.
And if everyone does the same thing, follows the concept of vote what you feel is best for the country and for you, then effectively we will have a better government in the end, because people are doing the research, and they're doing what they feel they honestly believe is right, rather than following tradition or
what mum and dad have always done and something like that. And that's true representation, isn't it?
Yeah. Cool. Well, thanks very much for your time.
Thank you
good
for
luck
your
in the
time.
election.
Well, my
and
pleasure.
you're off to do a bit of a talk to some oldies, I hear.
Yeah, we'll go and
luck,
talk to the wise old people.
Wise old people.
Well, someone said to me, you've got to learn from other people's mistakes, because you'll never live long enough to make them all yourself.
Yeah. So, good luck in the election anyway.
Thanks very much. Thanks for your time.
Thanks.
Cheers.